All right. I think we're going to be live. And if not, who cares? Hi, guys. It's me. It's been a minute since we've done a supporter-only live show. Just because every time I try to do it from my phone, Facebook streams it to the entire public, no matter what settings I choose. And they've yet to give me a good answer for why that is. Seems a little bit problematic if you generally do your supporter shows from your phone, which I generally don't, but it's kind of nice to do backyard rounds. Anyways, the good news about that is that what I intend to do for you guys then goes out to everybody and I just own it. And then we end up with a bunch more supporters because they go, oh, that's what these assholes do all day. So, hey, welcome back. Let's check your comments here. Make sure this thing is in fact going live. Cause I just don't know. Hang on. Yeah, it says that it is, but I don't see anybody watching on Facebook. What about YouTube? YouTube. Yeah, maybe. Let me break out the chat and see if that fixes my chat issue here. There they are on YouTube. We have Ashley Stewart, Larry Kehoe, Canoons, Monday Rounds, and not watching from Maui this time. Oh, I'm so upset with you. Why aren't you in Maui? It's the best place on the planet, short of Big Island. Juliet Pink, what up? Chris B, good evening from Temple Terrace, Florida. Oh, nice. And Juliet Pink gives a shout out to the Locals crew, and Larry's on the YouTube. So it looks like that's working now. What about Facebook? I don't see anything happening. It's like streaming, but there's 0 viewers. Isn't that interesting? So maybe that doesn't work. So while we're figuring that out, I may have to just like stop and start it again on Facebook. Actually, let me see. I'm gonna open up Facebook and see if it's actually going to Facebook while we're doing this, because it's not showing that it is. Oh no, there I am, but there's nobody watching. Huh? Isn't that weird? So it's not serving it. So I don't know about you guys, but Facebook is a shit show lately. Like there's nothing I can do to make it work right. Like all of a sudden they broke everything. Everything that was working fine, they broke it. Now, hopefully it's because they're building something cool, but I doubt it. I suspect it's because they're Facebook actually. See, like, look, this is it on Facebook, but no one else can see it. Like there's nobody watching. That is so bizarre. Let me try something. I'm going to end it and see if I can start it again with a new stream code. Okay, hang on guys on YouTube and Locals. I know you guys are superior and all, but let me just try this again. So I'm gonna disconnect that, toggle off, and then try to create a new one. Yeah, you know what? No, I'm not. Screw Facebook. Not the people on Facebook. They're wonderful. I will post it as a pre-record after the fact to Facebook because Facebook refuses to stream it live, even though it looks like it was going to my phone. No one can see it. All right, so dudes, COVID beliefs. Let's get into this. Now it's just YouTube, so I can make this full screen. YouTube and Locals, I should say. Let me find your comments. How do you guys like my moody lighting, by the way? I dimmed a few of the bulbs and tweaked some camera settings so it's less hot in here and less bright so that my eyes are not always just like pinpoint pupils like I'm on crack. What's up, Brandy Foxwell? Susan Morton says, Desert Southwest is rough this time of year. Is that where y'all are? Because I'm in the Yay area, and it's rough over here, but it's actually been quite cool. It hasn't been very hot. Dudes, so if you notice, the last few days I've been doing these like random lives that go to the whole page about like the present moment and all this stuff, and it's like pretty cool stuff, kind of important. I'm really into it. But a lot of that, that sort of idea of like kind of waking up really relates to looking at our beliefs about everything, beliefs about who we are, like our identity. I'm not talking about like your religious beliefs and all that, although it's good to examine everything. I'm talking about, so don't be triggered by that. I'm talking about looking at everything you think is real and examining it. And so when you think about that from a standpoint of COVID, you can really kind of start to see certain patterns emerge. That a lot of the discourse that we have online, a lot of the stuff that you see, like people batting around shits, sharing videos and all, it's belief-based. So, you know, and sometimes that belief happens to be a tribal identifier. like masking or not masking, or vaccinating or not vaccinating. And sometimes it's an interesting kind of belief where it's like we have some secret knowledge that other people don't have, and the belief that since this thing has been so mishandled, we found an answer and they're trying to stop us, right? Because one of the hallmarks of these sort of the sort of postmodern splintering of different groups is that every single one of these groups online and offline in the real world, these little mini tribes, they all believe that they are existentially threatened by forces, right? Like social justice activists believe that the high power, white power hierarchy threatens them. The QAnon people believe that it's, pedophiles and whatever that, whatever it is they believe. And they all are sort of fundamentally threatened. So that's where it comes to these ivermectin guys and gals. So, from a few months ago, there's been this growing little mini tribe of people that have we found the answer. What's wrong with everyone else? Here's a drug that works. Again, literally they'll say things like, it's a miracle. And they're led by this guy, Pierre Corey, who's part of the Frontline Critical Care Consortium or something. I forget, it's FLAC, FLCCC. And Paul Merrick's in that group. He's the vitamin C sepsis guy. He's been on my show before. And then some other docs are in it, and a bunch of other people. And then a bunch of other tribe members online who have no training at all in anything, but just have decided this is their tribal identifier. Ivermectin, an antiparasitic, anti-worm drug that is cheap, relatively safe as drugs go, and had some purported pathophysiological mechanism for potentially affecting coronavirus. A lot of really poorly done garbage data studies that say, oh, look, it works great. Observational studies, poorly done randomized control trials, really not much in the US. It's all kind of all over the world. That doesn't mean it's bad, and so this real collection of not great data. And maybe it has some effect, right? So maybe ivermectin has some effect, but it's not the effect most likely based on the data that I've seen and that Vinay's reviewing and is giving me prelim feedback on and has tweeted about. It's garbage data. And so, but yet this tribe wants to believe that they found this thing that big pharma doesn't want you to know about, that is, why give a vaccine when you can give a cheap, safe, and effective medicine, and it'd be great in the developing world where the thing's going crazy and there's no time or ability to give vaccines. And so why aren't we just giving this? Why? And their argument is we can't wait for a big randomized control trial. No one's going to fund it. And even if it came out, they design it in a way that didn't show a benefit. And it's like, well, if this thing is such a miracle drug, any randomized control trial of any kind ought to show a massive benefit, because that's just what's going to happen. It's the gold standard trial. You're going to see a benefit. And yet it's still just observational data. And then they do a meta-analysis of all the garbage trials. So as Vinay was saying, garbage in, garbage out. When you take a bunch of crap data and you do a meta-analysis and you look at it all together, you get a crap answer because the original data is garbage. But could it be that, so now this is where belief comes in. So the question becomes, well, could it be that that their belief about this drug, which was based on these small pieces of data, is actually true, and that we just haven't done the right trial and they're correct? Of course, that's possible, right? So how do you investigate your own beliefs? Because my actual original bias is to be on these guys' side. I know Paul Merrick. He's a good guy, right? I'm not sure he was right about vitamin C sepsis and thiamine, because the randomized control trials that he prompted at great expense, so the critical care community took him very seriously, have been all negative. But he continues, and now he says, well, they have it out for me and this and that. And you start to go, well, okay, so is this, as Vinay said, are you attached to this regimen, or are you attached to solving the problem of sepsis? Because when you get attached to a therapeutic, you're the easiest person to fool, because now your entire approach is belief-based. It's identity-based. It's it's saying, you know what? I am staking my reputation on blah. Well, let's really go into that for a second. You're staking your reputation on blah. Okay. You believe the data that's been seen. But beyond that, you formed an identity-related belief. You should never stake your career on anything. You should say, you know what? I'm willing to be proven wrong. I want you to prove me wrong on this. Show me that I'm wrong. Here's what I think based on the data, and here's why. Now come and debate me. Show me, falsify my theory. Show me where I'm wrong. That's not what we're seeing. Folks like Merrick say this is the vitamin C cocktail is a miracle drug, right? It's, Logan's texting me. Oh yeah, Facebook. Yeah. Facebook's totally screwed up. So, he says it's a miracle drug. This cocktail's a miracle. Like nobody I've treated hasn't gotten better, and so on and so forth. And that's not, that kind of absolutism is a warning. And you can tear apart the studies that the original hypothesis was based on, which were retroactive before-after observational trials, quite easily. And so the core belief that then you wrap your identity in, now you see it amplified on social media. It happened with Merrick with vitamin C, and then Merrick's back with ivermectin and with Pierre Corey. Same idea. They're staking all their professional reputation on this thing, and therefore they have everything to lose because their identity and belief are bound instead of an abject surrender to what might be true, which could be not what you believe. That's how we ought to be doing science. That's how we ought to be doing life. I mean, I've argued in some of these videos with Angelo that our core belief that we're a separate self apart from everything else, and that reality is subdivided into self, other, and these different objects and parts, that belief is up for question. And not only is it up for question, it's up for empirical review by looking into your own experience through different practices and seeing, is that really true? And that's another conversation, right? But look at these beliefs. So the ivermectin crowd has now wrapped this in the shroud of belief. Nothing you say to them that counters what they're saying will be met with anything but derision and attack and accusations and straw man arguments and, recriminations and ad hominems like you're a shill and this and that and the other thing. We just look at the data. That's what they'll say. Okay, I did. I don't believe it because it's garbage data. Wait, no, you didn't look at the same data I looked at. No, I did. You have a fundamental core belief that this data means something else. And that belief is not necessarily an objective belief, right? And that is, the fundamental issue here with the ivermectin mafia. So, and I noticed them come back out of the woodwork after Vinay and I did a show, and I was like, hey, these ivermectin guys, man, they'll really go after you online. And man, it's been like on Twitter and stuff, it's just like they activate their crew, and then any video you post, like I can post a video on awakening enlightenment, and the ivermectin crowd's there. Well, you should awaken with Pierre Corey. And it's like, listen to yourself. Listen to yourself and listen to what I said, which is, oh, ivermectin could work. Do the right trial and find out. Right? They start to sound absolutely unhinged because belief. Now, I have to question my belief. What if I'm wrong about randomized controlled trials and evidence-based medicine? Maybe they're right that clinical intuition, seeing patients in the field, because they all say, oh, we treat this, any doctor worth his salt who actually treats this stuff has seen this thing work like a miracle, right? So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you don't need all that, and maybe they're right. Totally possible, right? And I admit that freely. But they will never admit that they could be wrong about ivermectin. Ask them. No, how could we be wrong? How could so many doctors who've seen it work on the front line be wrong? Quite easily, because doctors are wrong all the fucking time, all the time, all the time. We're wrong about almost everything when we're going on pure intuition. We're often wrong, not almost everything. We're often wrong. And not only are we wrong, we're wrong in a way that blinds us to seeing actual truth that's there. Like when the real data comes out or new evidence happens, we go, oh, wait, what? Like when Institute of Medicine says, oh, medical errors kill so many hundreds of thousands of people a year. Doctors are like, no, well, that's got to be wrong, because their belief is that they're good people trying to do good in the world, which is all valid and fine. Doesn't mean they don't make mistakes. Doesn't mean they're not blind to the mistakes. Doesn't mean the mistakes don't kill people. So belief is a real sticky thing. It's a real sticky thing, and we see it now throughout the spectrum of COVID. Now, what I love about you guys, and particularly now I'm talking to the YouTube and locals crowd, and Facebook will watch this on replay if I put it up. You guys are pretty alt-middle, which means you have beliefs, but you're willing to question them, or you're willing to hold them and debate them in an open and accepting way of people with contravening beliefs. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And that's why we can talk about these things. We can talk about meta belief. Like, what are our beliefs about beliefs? What is it that we actually really find valuable in terms of core identity? And I think some of the more valuable alt-middle type beliefs are, hey, I should question all my beliefs, but also hold the beliefs that I think are really right, hold them loosely, and don't use them as a battering ram for hitting over the heads of others who don't share the same belief. And that science is a process and a methodology. It's not a dogma, and it's not fixed. So there is no the science. There's only science, right? That's our alt-middle philosophy. So, let's see. Larry Kehoe, my 80-year-old parents in Florida were given ivermectin by their doctor and made it through COVID within 2 weeks at home. All right, Larry, so let's talk about that. So your intuition is, ivermectin sounds like a miraculously great drug. 80-year-old parents got it from their doctor, did great. Okay, what if you cloned them, had the same exact thing happen, they were given a sugar pill, and their doctor told them, hey, this is a powerful antiviral, and you're going to get better. Well, you can't do that trial, can you? But if you did, what might you find? Probably what the good randomized trial, randomized control trial found with ivermectin for mild disease, which is it didn't do anything. And this is the big difficulty, because as humans, we're story-driven narrative belief creatures. That's what we do. Our elephant is where we store our beliefs. It's big and it's ancient, and it will defend itself using our writer to argue, right? And this is where Pierre Corey, Paul Merrick, all these anecdote-driven, I put scientists in quotes because anecdote is not science. It's the beginning of science, the beginning of a hypothesis. But then you test it with real science. They'll say, well, look, everybody I've treated with it gets better. Well, how do you know they weren't going to get better anyways? Did you compare it to a control group? Well, look, this country, they started, their numbers started dropping as soon as they instituted ivermectin. Could it be that they had a terrible surge, and like every surge around the world, surges drop after they hit their peak? They hit their peak, they panic, they start giving ivermectin. It's correlation. The cases start coming down. Like, could that be possible? Question your belief. Could that be possible? Well, of course it could be possible, right? So then you got to negate that possibility, and that's hard to do. You do it with a randomized control trial that's sufficiently powered. Now, this argument that they're somehow trying to suppress ivermectin doesn't hold any water with me, because no one tried to suppress dexamethasone, which is equally cheap and reasonably safe and given out like candy in the hospital. And as Vinay and I were talking about this, and it's kind of like, we want therapeutics, we want drugs to fix this problem. But with most viruses, drugs don't fix the problem. They slow things down. Even HIV, did we cure HIV? Maybe in 1 or 2 patients. And I don't know if that was with bone marrow transplant or something. I forget. It wasn't with the drugs. Drugs turn a, fatal disease into a chronic disease in the case of HIV, and you take them for the rest of your life, and they have side effects. Why would we think that a coronavirus, which is related to the family of viruses that cause colds, which we've never solved, is going to be solved with a medication? It's not, unless we really up our game. It's going to be solved with a vaccine, which is what's happening. And with the natural course of the disease generating natural immunity, tearing through the population. It's a combination of those things. That's most likely. That's most likely the case. Now, could we be wrong? Sure, because you have to question that belief that I have that that's what's true, right? So, that's kind of where we get into belief. Let's read some comments. Julia Smith, a scientist explained to me that people can spontaneously clear the virus, so it's hard to tell. I mean, how many Stories have you heard of 80, 90, 100-year-old people who survived coronavirus with flying colors? And they didn't get, any of the monoclonal stuff. They didn't get anything. They just stayed home and they got better and they tested positive. It happens. This virus has protean manifestations, as Monica Gandhi brilliantly put it on the show, meaning it can manifest in a million different ways in every different type of person. And some of that has to do with how big an inoculum of virus you got. Some of that has to do with your genetics, your previous viral exposures, your history of immune tolerance to that class of virus, all kinds of things like that. So this idea that we can use anecdotes and stories to do hard science is wrong. We can use them to lead us to studies based on that intuition. Like they did it with hydroxychloroquine. Oh, it was based on some reasonable mechanistic assumptions. Well, when you study it, it doesn't work. It doesn't pan out. Great. That's how you do science. Now, that was another drug wrapped in belief, wrapped in politicization, all the other stuff, right? Like when can we remember when something like that has happened like that? It's because of all the reasons that the coddling of the American mind or these books have talked about. We've splintered into tribal groups. We no longer have a unifying religion or a unifying media that tells us, oh, this is the collective understanding. We don't have a we space like that. The other interesting thing is that globalization and the internet have knocked down fences. And there's a saying, right, that good fences make good neighbors. And the other side of that saying is familiarity breeds contempt. So by knocking down barriers to different thought, different ideas, it's a good thing, you would think, right? But normally we separate from other countries with an impenetrable wall of distance and language and all these other things. And you knock it all down, now you have a global village on the internet that's butting up against each other, sharing ideas that are antithetical to ideas shared by others. But now the fence is knocked down. So now your neighbor's a neo-Nazi and you're a social justice activist. And so it's like, I hate you. So this proximity effect, and this was laid out in an article I shared on Locals about this, about the culture war 2.0. So with all of this now, we question reality itself. Like, well, your facts lead you to this conclusion. The same facts lead you to this conclusion. It's Scott Adams' whole two Americas, two movie screens thing during the 2016 election, People on the right see it this way. People on the left see it this way. So where does the alt-middle come into this? We're the gray pill people. There's no red pill, blue pill. Here it is. There's nuance. Truth is always an activity. It's not something you hold. It's an activity. I'm truthing. I'm trying to find truth. I'm trying to learn what's a little more true than what I knew 5 minutes ago. It's always everything. All your understanding at any given moment is true, but partial. So there's some truth there, but it's partial. There's more truth that you can always infinitely seek, infinitely. You can drill down into anything infinitely and learn more and more and more and more and more truth. And that ought to be our prime directive, is truth acquisition. And we don't have to, and again, doesn't mean we have to be right. Doesn't mean that we should hold our rightness as a belief and an identity that then we bludgeon other people with. That makes very little sense. It really ought to be about acquisition of truth and understanding and love for others. You don't have to, if you're an introvert, if you're socially, don't like that, because, hey, man, I'm with you. I like people in the concept. In person, I can do without them just because I'm perfectly happy being with just my family forever, honestly. Like, that's just how I'm wired. But at the same time, being with you guys like this is ecstatic for me. Like, it's a kind of ecstasy. So I get my connection in a way where I feel the most open and vulnerable and connected. And it's like this. But the idea that we could open up to the bounds of where we're comfortable, in whatever space we're comfortable, let our defenses down, loosen our hold on our beliefs, question all of that. How different would the world be? We might have the next emergent of where humans are supposed to go, right? This, caterpillar turning into a butterfly kind of scenario. Let's see. Wait, but I took the purple pill, Carrie Bennett. You are a purple pill kind of gal, Carrie. Andrew Powell, when will the previously infected enjoy the same freedoms as the vaccinated? Isn't natural immunity basically as effective as the vaccines? Isn't vaccinating the immune immoral in vaccine apartheid. Andrew, so I like how you are framing this question, which is in questions. Isn't this? Now, using the term isn't is a little leading. So you're saying, okay, I believe these things, and so now respond to them, Z-Dog, right? An interesting way to frame comments, something that I struggle with, but I think I should try to do more, is could it be possible that, right? Or have you considered the possibility that, or are you open to the possibility that, is interesting, because then people have to question their beliefs instead of isn't it, which is kind of almost like you're finding the belief and you're attacking it, going, wait, you believe that natural immunity isn't good. Let me poke at that. And what that does, it often triggers people to shut down. So I'm speaking in the abstract, not about you, about just like how we have our discourse, right? Now, to the specific question, I think natural immunity is a real thing. I think we ought to respect it. And I think Marty's written extensively about it in Wall Street Journal and other places. He's talked about it on my show. Absolutely a real thing. And I think it's going to be long lasting, much longer lasting than they're leading us to believe. And there you can go, okay, how do incentives affect how we push things? Well, pharma's certainly incentive to push a vaccine and a booster and variants and all of this, because it's an infinite source of revenue at that point. But we don't have to play along with that. We can question everything. We also don't have to stick to a belief that pharma is universally bad, because they're not, right? Again, true but partial. Everything's a little bit true but partial. Lisa Steiner, if my family was together forever, some would need medical care, others bail money. Oh, I'm not saying we wouldn't go down swinging, believe me, but I'm just perfectly happy to do it that way. Geek Sky, I want to know where Ronald got a PCA for personal use. Ronald Vector Stokes has a personal PCA? Dude, Ronald, hit me up, bro. Give me a hit of that. 1 for you, 2 for me. Where are we at? Dean MD, PhD, Andrew Powell, immunity from vaccination is actually stronger, but we don't know why. So this is something that I should have mentioned. Measured immunity in terms of antibodies, T cells, et cetera, does appear to be stronger after the second dose of those mRNA vaccines than natural immunity. But again, we don't really know what that means clinically out in the world. So like, what's the reinfection rate with severe disease and hospitalization for previously infected coronavirus versus previously vaccinated coronavirus who've never been infected with coronavirus? And I don't think that's a study that's been done, but it's worth looking at. Now, the truth is, what would I do if it was me? Okay, assuming that vaccine isn't scarce and that I'm not taking it from someone else, which is not a good assumption. We could be sending this vaccine to countries that really need it, right? Instead of vaccinating, 11 and under kids, which Vinay and I have talked about, is like, what's the risk benefit on that? Unless they have comorbidities, right? Assuming you're not taking the vaccine and creating scarcity, what I would choose if I were previously infected with coronavirus is I would probably go ahead and get the vaccine. And the reason is because of the at least measured robust immunity. Now, this is where I'm talking about me. So I'm not saying this is what you should do. I'm not saying it's even right for the population. I'm saying I would do it for this reason, because then I would have a higher degree of certainty that my maskless party lifestyle is not going to get me killed. And for me, that's worth the side effects of the vaccine, meaning that, rigors and the chills and the headache and all that. I'm fine with that. And the infinitesimally small chance that you may get myocarditis or blood clot if you're using one of the other vaccines, that sort of thing. So that's how I would look at it for me. It doesn't mean that's the answer for you. It doesn't mean it's the answer for the population. But that's how I do my thinking. It's like a practical mixed with the science, mixed with the I don't give a fuck. Saknika says, what does PCA stand for? I'm not familiar with this acronym. Patient-controlled analgesia. So a PCA pump in a hospital is an IV hooked up to you that you administer pain medicine. And the doctors, like myself, will program that pump to limit how much you can administer. So either space it out over time, like you can only get it every 10 minutes, or limit the dose, like you only get this much dose. PCA pumps are very safe. They allow the patient to have a sense of control. You can set the dose very small, but the patient gets a perceived benefit because they get control of it. And so there's a large placebo effect as well. The one dangerous thing with PCAs is setting a basal infusion rate so that they're always getting some narcotic. That can be problematic because it can stack up and cause trouble. It's like being on a drip, but there's an option to do that with PCAs, which I think they should just get rid of, unless you're on hospice. That's where it's useful. And the thing is, on hospice, a lot of times the patients can't push the button themselves and the family's pushing the button for them, which becomes, on hospice, it's okay if you're end of life, you're like comfort care. Not hospice, but comfort care, end of life. But, you know, if you're just in the hospital, you don't want family pushing the button, but they tend to do that. So you set the lockout appropriately. Who are you kidding? It's the nurses who program the pumps, Risa Doobie. I know, Risa. I mean, I can't say that publicly. Ronald Vector Stokes, exactly what I was thinking, Risa. Yeah, you know it. Carrie Bennett, I was a PCA with Dilly Lala when I had surgery, right? Dilaudid PCA, man. It'll get that pain under control and give you a locus of control and make you a little crazy. Chris B, how crazy is it that here in Florida, you can basically walk to a Publix store and have a choice of which vaccine you want, and there's places that don't have enough. I know. We've gotten to that place of American abundance again, right? And now we're reaching diminishing returns because the people who don't want it just don't want it. And you know, you can sweet talk them and give them information and let them make decisions. And by sweet talk, I mean be nice and say, hey, I get it, you know, here's what I think, and here's what I did for my family, and here's why this stuff that you're seeing and you're citing as problematic is actually kind of misinformation. But you have to be humble, and you also have to understand that we don't know everything. You know, we can't. It's a new pandemic. Let's see. Wendy H, I had a Demerol post C-section. Ooh la la. Yeah, see, Demerol, we don't even use that anymore because it causes seizures, but that gave you a hell of a buzz, I understand. Les Proctor III, if you don't get vaccinated and get COVID and expose a vulnerable person and they die, are you to blame? So I struggle with this, Les, because, you know, my belief structure, my elephant basically says, yes, you are, because we do vaccines as a personal benefit, but also as a community benefit. And you're just being selfish by not getting it. And you're also an idiot for not understanding the science behind it. Now, that's what my unconscious belief is, but I recognize that and go, but that's actually not what's motivating people, right? What's motivating people is that they don't feel like they have all the information. They don't trust pharma or the government. They also don't think that they're going to be a causative agent in someone else's demise. So it's not like they're actively trying to kill people. They're just, you know, really, they don't believe that that's going to happen. And so the question is that manslaughter then if it happens, or is it just, you know, the nature of these kind of things? What I think is it's not as important a question, because who are these vulnerable people that you're going to kill by not being vaccinated? So if enough adults get vaccinated in the community, your chances of getting it, even if you're unvaccinated, are vastly lower. So even your chance of getting it, if we have 60, 70% of the population vaccinated, which in many places we do have now, San Francisco is some of the highest in the nation. We have basically herd immunity at this point. You know, the unvaccinated are now getting a free ride. So it's not even really a question. But then who are the vulnerable that you're going to give it to? Well, people who can't get vaccinated, which is young kids below 11, who, unless they have comorbidities, are at infinitesimally low risk. I mean, they could get MIS-C, but it's really low risk. Or an adult who chose not to get vaccinated, or is immunocompromised and got vaccinated and the vaccine didn't kick in, or they're an elder and the vaccine just wasn't that effective. But we haven't seen that in trials. In trials, we're seeing really good efficacy on hospitalization and severe disease. So that population of vulnerables is quite small. Or someone who's had an allergic reaction, they can't get the vaccine. It's quite a small population because there are other vaccines you can use, Johnson & Johnson, et cetera. So that's my thinking on that. I just don't think it's worth even asking the question for this disease. I think for measles, yes. For, you know, mumps, yes. You know, for pertussis, yes. Where are we at? Larry Kehoe says, hey, I realize you're being hyperbolic, but it could never be manslaughter because there's no way within a reasonable doubt you could prove that the person gave you COVID. Oh, that's interesting, Larry. Good point. From a legal standpoint, how would you prove that they gave it to you? That's true. Well, I guess what I mean, Larry, is let's say we're omniscient. Let's say we're God and we're able to know what exactly happened. It's more a moral judgment. Like, did that person commit manslaughter? Right? Not in court of law, but in reality. Did they kill this person through negligence or through willful willful negligence. I am not getting a vaccine. I refuse to believe any of this. I'm not, I'm not going to give my keys to my friend because I've been drinking. I'm fine. I feel fine. I'm going to go get in the car, and then you kill a kid, right? So I think, that's a debatable thing, right? But these are fun philosophical questions to go through. Erica Jean, only ever had fentanyl. Oh, you guys are still talking about narcotics. I'm a redhead though, so we're more of a pain to deal with. It did nothing for me, the fentanyl. Yeah, everybody's got a different thing. Oh, guess what? Having Rachel Zoffness, the pain psychologist, back on. She wrote that book. We had her on the show. We're going to talk about all the things. We're going to talk about fibromyalgia. We're going to talk about somatization, the emotions manifesting as physical illness, biopsychosocial root causes of depression, anxiety, all kinds of stuff, It's going to be great. So stay tuned. That's happening at the end of June. Today I interviewed a guy, Marshall Allen, wrote this book, Never Pay the First Bill, which he left with me. There's Marshall on the back. Marshall is a reporter for ProPublica, and the reason I know that is he helped Marty with the editing of Marty's book, The Price We Pay, and he's done a lot of expose-type ProPublica pieces in the early pandemic about how frontline healthcare staff were not getting PPE and were being mistreated, and so he's near and dear to my heart. He's a really good guy. Is a reporter for ProPublica, where he investigates why we pay so much for healthcare and get so little in return. He's a Pulitzer Prize finalist and recipient of the Harvard Kennedy School's Goldsmith Prize for Investigative Reporting. Teaches investigative reporting at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at City University of New York, and has spoken at various conferences. So, and this is an interesting thing too. Before he became a journalist, he spent 5 years in full-time ministry, and including 3 years in Kenya. So he's quite a guy. And so this book is great. I interviewed him today. We did a series of videos, actually, kind of like what we did with Angelo, because he flew all the way out from New Jersey. And I was like, let's maximize your time and we'll just bang out a bunch of stuff. And it's great. It's all like, how do you fight bogus medical bills? And I'm going to release it for you guys first, I think, so you guys can see it and see what you think. But it was a great interview. Very excited to be able to do this stuff. You know, what's interesting though is like when I do an interview like that in the morning, I put my all into it, right? You talk for an hour for one interview, then you do a series of clips, and then you're talking offline, and you're like, running the equipment and all that. When I got home, I went back home to grab my kids. They're actually here now because they're off, for this week, and I wanted to spend some time with them and hang out. And my wife's working. When I got home, I was so exhausted. Like all my energy was gone. Like my kids were just like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, so tired. Like those kind of things, like just absolutely draw all the energy, right? Because the person's right here. Again, it comes down to the we space that we create in meat space, in reality, right? Whereas this kind of thing, I could do this for 10 hours and get progressively more energized. But the kind of in-person thing with the eye contact and all that, I sometimes wonder if I'm a little bit on the spectrum because I find it exhausting because I do put a lot of focus and energy, and I don't need to do that for this. For this, it's like a natural flow state that just emerges. It's really interesting. Let's see. Ooh, used to do bill collections on medical staff stuff. That's one hell of a murky area, Saknika. Yeah, we talked about that. Like, how do you deal when it goes to collections? What do you say to the medical debt collectors? How do you negotiate? And the thing is, these bills are inflated to begin with. So they're not accurate bills to begin with. That's the problem. If they were, then you say, yeah, send them to collections and collect, because the person is reneging on paying a bill. But the bills are super inflated and they're unfair. They're often fraudulent or incorrect. And we talked about that. Risa Doobie, sounds like trying to get back to work after your adrenaline drops after a code. That's it. That's what it is. That's what it is. Because you're all fired up on hormones. You're just like, yeah, right. You get passion. I'm banging the table talking about these medical bills. And then I go home and I'm just like, oh, because I had all these plans. I'm like, oh, we'll go hiking. We'll go to the beach. We'll do all this stuff. And instead I'm like, you guys want to like head back to the studio and you guys we'll have go down into town and get some dessert and I'll do a show and we'll just be chill. And they were like, yeah, cool. Sounds good. I'm like, all right, let's do that because I'm wiped out. Melissa Big Mac says, I manage my fibromyalgia by punching dolphins. Hell yeah. I'll punch you right in your dolphin hole, you squeaky little bitch. That's what I tell a dolphin before I punch it in its snout. You know, because this is the thing about dolphins that people don't realize. A fucking dolphin, you know, people are like, oh, they're so cute. You know, they got a big smile on their face. That's a lie. That's a false interface they're presenting you. Don Hoffman would be proud. Like, they do that shit to fool you into thinking that they will not cut a bitch. But like, I've seen a dolphin with a switchblade. They're just, you know, hey, and they just shank you. The big ass fucking smile on its face. So I'm just telling you, if the dolphin comes at me, I'm not waiting. This is no Discovery Channel bullshit. This is just fucking brass knuckles and pop right in the dolphin's snout with the follow through, like with the whole shoulder, just all my mass fall through. In water, out of water, I don't give a fuck. All right. Get me started on some other shit. Erica Black, I'm so exhausted. I don't get enough sleep anymore. I'm worried about you, Erica. That's a problem when sleep doesn't happen. And I know you're going through a lot. So we're rooting for you. See, Z knows, Melissa Big Mac, dolphins are evil. Hell yeah. Look, listen, Melissa, and this is not a commentary on fibromyalgia, but I'll say this. I have chronic pain. I have neck pain constantly, every day now. It's been for the last like 3 years. Like, it started with meditation and then like the way I used to exercise, so on, bad posture, all that. You'll notice sometimes when I'm talking on camera now, I'm like trying to do this, like keep my posture artificially straight instead of just fucking this kind of thing, which I normally do. And so I'm constantly in some degree of low level pain, and some days are worse than others. Well, and I don't take anything for it. I don't see anybody for it because I'm a dumbass. So there are times though, right, when you're just like, this is no good. Like, this is unpleasant. And it's times like that. It's always times like that, Melissa, when you're walking by the ocean and you hear that fucking noise, that fucking dolphin squawk. You know, it's like fins on a chalkboard, just a squelchy fin just on a chalkboard. And I hear it, and it's like I get a rush of adrenaline. I'm like, okay, there's a dolphin with a fist-shaped receptacle on its face. It's about to get punched in the fucking snout. I couldn't keep it going. Sorry, Carissa Davis was talking to Soknica, who said, someone needs to animate this, right? Like a dolphin punching asshole. But the dolphins fight back because, you know, you have to give them some agency because, you know, they have bigger brains than us, I think, like more rugae in their brains. Or is rugae just a scrotal thing? I don't know. Fins on a chalkboard. That's right, Carissa. You know, you have a PhD. You know what fins on a chalkboard sound like. Right? When you're defending your dissertation and the professor asks some dipshit question, it sounds like a fucking wet fin just on a chalkboard. Gary Bennett, show us where the dolphin hurt you, Z. I can't show you. It's dirty. YouTube will block me. Let's just say that snout fits in a lot of different places. You got to go see a chiro. I know, Larry Kehoe. Believe me, I'm not a huge fan of the concept of chiropractic, although I like their holistic approach. And so, but there's a big part of me that's like, crack my motherfucking neck. I don't care if I get a vertebral artery dissection or a basilar carotid dissection. What's funny is my wife, being a radiologist, sees all the chiropractic complications that aren't publicly known, like all the dissections of arteries that happen in the neck from the neck manipulation. And so she's told me, she's abjectly forbidden me from seeing a chiropractor. So instead I whine constantly to her about my neck. My neck, it hurts. Jen Worth, you need to go lay down and meditate, Dr. Jen Worth. If I lay down, I'll fall asleep. No. You know I'm kidding, right? You do know I'm kidding. This is all just improv. It's like fun improv. I would never punch a dolphin unless he fucking comes at me with that squawky fucking flappy fin of his. Then all bets are off, right? Hey, look, I'm as present as the next motherfucker. I'm nearly awake. Like I knock on the door of Awakening. Awakening's looking at me going, all right, you want a piece of this? And I'm like, maybe tomorrow, maybe not today. Because I have some unfinished business on the astral plane of samsara, okay? The veil of tears where we exist as separate selves. I have some unfinished fucking business with a dolphin. Maybe several dolphins. Maybe what is a pack of dolphins called? A murder of dolphins? Because that's what's going to happen. I don't need a fishing net to murder dolphins, right? I do it with my fists. I'm like Jean-Claude Van Dolphin. I just take a dolphin. You know those little fucking teeth? It freaks the dolphins out. You come up with a Sonicare toothbrush. You just start brushing their teeth. They think, oh, this human's not so bad. Maybe he'll give us fish after. Whoop-ah! Just punch them right in the snout. And they never even saw it coming because they're just like getting their teeth cleaned, right? The Sonicare is just like, and they're just, you see them. They're in the zone. That's when they don't even see it coming, just pop. My unconscious is a pretty dark place, right? Because, improv comedy comes from, or any improv acting, it comes from like the unconscious. It comes from darkness and it goes into darkness. Go to the ones that don't dissect your arteries. Okay. All right, Larry. I'll think about it. How's that? It's a pod of dolphins. Thank you, Carissa. God, you're so smart. Okay. Who hit me with the PayPal? Lucille says, we just had a family member die, not from COVID, but from COVID lockdown. 75-year-old in car accident with broken bones, fully vaccinated. English was second language and hard to understand. Let me read the rest of this because it's interesting. Hold on. And hard to understand. He was put on a 14-day quarantine. Within that time, he failed to give his usual medication. They failed to give his usual medication. He ended up putting him on a ventilator. He and his wife have been able to see. Had his wife been able to see him, even on video, they would have been able to tell the doctors, will we ever know how many have died because of lockdown? So heartbreaking. Dude, Lucille is on point, man. I've seen shit happen with like failures of cancer screening and stuff. It's bad, That's why you have to look at these things holistically. Denise Hoover's going to call PETA stat on me. Porpoises for the ethical treatment of animals. Call those motherfuckers, and you tell them, look see you, dolphin. PETA. My dark soul tips a hat to your dark soul, Risa Doobie. I suspect a lot of people in this tribe are have the heart of darkness. But see, even that's an illusion, right? Because what we all are really is basically unlimited, open love and connection. That's what we fundamentally are. So don't sweat it. Dory Ellswick. PETA be taking names about punching dolphins. I know. That Sonicare toothbrush is the shiznit, though. Oh, yeah, Risa, that's right. I sent you one of those. Erica Black, the dolphin from Flipper, committed suicide. I heard something about that. It was like bummed that it was having to, dance like a clown for these dipshit humans. I don't know if that's really true, but I did hear something like that. Juliet, that's why your better half is at work. She can't be having this neck pain carry on. Where is that dolphin? I know. I need to punch a dolphin. It's the equivalent of a chiropractic neck manipulation is dolphin punching. A pod of them. Go deal to them, Juliet Pink. I like your style, Juliet. Go punch a pod in the face. Denise Hoover. Hey, had me some Flipper for lunch. Oh, what? You ate dolphin? I don't think that's what you mean. Erica Jean talking to Ashley Stewart about crows. Or maybe Brandon, what's his name, in The Crow. All right, so I think we did a thing today. We talked about beliefs. I wonder if I almost want to release that publicly, but I won't because you guys get it and they can all suck it. They're like dolphins, the main page. It's like you just want to punch them in the face. You guys know I'm kidding. You know what? Let's end with a little present moment awareness. Should we do that? Because you can't leave all jazzed up. Even though we're just joking around, we're having fun. You can't leave like that. You got to leave with love. So, all right. Quick exercise that anyone can do. It's not rocket science. It's easy to do. And you should do it with me because we're live right now, right? So since we're live, we're doing it together. Like all you guys, all 81 of you on YouTube and locals, right? And it's very simple. It's just drop everything. Doesn't that feel better if you did it with me? You're just suddenly right in the present moment. Just sights, colors, sounds, sensations, thoughts. And there's no I having any of it. It's just happening. And we do it together, which means it's just happening to all of us together. One thing. All right. Who's down to punch a fucking dolphin in the fucking mouth? All right. All right, guys.